Okay, this is the step I want you to do before solving equations with variables on both sides with rational numbers. That means you're going to see fractions, decimals, things like that. The thing is, we've got to do a quick review of how to find the least common multiple. And so the least common multiple, this sheet is just a little review. You probably did this back in 5th grade, but this is why it's come so important, so you can figure out how to solve some of these harder problems. Least common multiple, 8 and 20. What you try to find is the lowest number they both go into, not goes into them. That's greatest common factor. But least common multiple, the lowest number they both go into. So if you sit here and you list out the multiples, 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24, 8 times 4 is 32, 8 times 5 is 40, 48, and go on and on and on. 20, so that's multiples of 8. 20, the multiples of 20 are 20 times 1 is 20, 20 times 2 is 40, 20 times 3 is 60. Well, right there we already had 40. That is the lowest number that they both go into. So the least common multiple is 40. My goal is that you can see it and find it, that you don't have to list out the multiples. So do not feel like you have to list out the multiples if you can see and find the least common multiple. Now, the least common multiple is not necessarily always multiplying them together. Sometimes that's true, but not always, so be careful. Least common multiple of 3 numbers. You're going to need to know how to do this. 4, 5, and 8. What's the lowest number all 3 of those go into? You're going to write that there. Down here, we're working with fractions. Now, what we want to do, we don't want to add or subtract, multiply or divide or anything, but we're going to put these over a common denominator. And I wrote, rewrite fractions to show a common denominator. Well, what's the number that 5 and 7 both go into, the least common denominator? Well, that's 35. That's right. So that's going to have to be, you're going to have to multiply that by 7 to get 35, that by 7. So the new fractions are 21/35, and I'm fine with you just doing a comma or write the word and then the other one's going to be 20/35. Now, I'm not adding or subtracting, but that's what you would do when you add or subtract fractions. You want to get a common denominator. And in order to do that, you need to change the numerator at the same ratio as you change the denominator. So 35 was the least common denominator. In this case, we just multiplied them together. So down here, be careful. When you multiply these, you're not going to get the least common denominator. Then you'd have to simplify. So you want to get the least common denominator for all of these. Here is a 3 problem 1. Set this in fractions as 3 fractions that have a common denominator that are equivalent. So 3/5 equals 21/35, and 4/7 equals 20/35. So all you're doing here is just rewriting them, just as a little review on finding the least common multiple and the least common denominator of fractions. That is your review. Complete and then turn in.